Hey, welcome back. I'm John. That's Adam. That's Ty. Here we are back at What Problem Are You Solving? The best podcast today on innovation and lean startup. So, yeah, it's been a while. We missed a week for the Memorial Day holiday, so
Yes, we did.
hope everyone was well rested and
I went
had
on
a good time.
vacation. I went on a boat.
I bought a washer and dryer.
I got sick. What did you do, Adam?
Did not get sick. That's good.
I did not get sick.
I'll take.
But
my
it was
notes.
cool.
Nice.
Family
Awesome.
was there, hung out. It's all good.
Let's jump right in. Ty,
Yes.
what problem are you solving this week?
I have several problems I'm solving. One is, how do you create a strategy, a subordinate strategy, when you don't have a primary strategy,
Ooh,
right?
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's hard. And then trying to create the communication plan to let your upline know that we need one of these. One of these kids is doing his own thing. One of these kids is not like the same. Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Nice. Awesome. When I'm faced with that scenario, I tell the people I coach, run with it, because who can tell you no until there's another one above it. So
Yeah.
be control of your own boat.
I like that.
I have to
Adam.
tell you guys about real quick. I tell you all about a conversation I had just like at 5 o'clock. Fascinating conversation on the power of catalytic thinking and liminal space.
Ooh, nice.
So it's really, really interesting. I'm sorry, Adam, please.
What problem are you solving, Adam?
All right, I was going to say that I was solving the problem of a long expected podcast, so I was going to not have a problem and I was going to save space. But all right, same theme of customer discovery. I got something coming up at Tech Town on Wednesday. Is that tomorrow? Next day? So I'm going to stay on that same theme of 100 interviews, but let's make sure we're learning something. So we'll see. I'll have more to talk about next Monday after that event. But let's plug it now that we've got, what do we say? Plural listeners.
Yeah.
If you're in the Detroit metro area, come listen to these startups who have just done their customer discovery process at Tech Town.
Awesome.
So, John,
good luck.
what problem are you starting? What problem are you starting? You want to be starting something. You got to be starting something. You want to get, I'm sorry. What problem are you solving?
This week, I'm solving the problem of getting 5-year planners out of their own way, specifically trying to marry those who have to have 5-year plans by government budgets, but also have to execute, in quarterly chunks at a time. So how do you marry up? Like, we have to budget for this space out here. Otherwise, if we don't ask for it, we're not going to get any money in the out years, versus how do I actually make a good enough decision and not go too deep because we know it's going to change. So what's that right level of, we think we're going to build this at the end of next year, but we're not really sure, but it's a good enough plan that you'll give us money for it.
Oh, God.
I know. Exactly.
To go back a previous episode, could you fund the O for 5 years and the KRs yearly?
Oh, don't give me a 5-year objective. But yes, it's in effect what they're doing. Yeah, they're just turning it into straight up waterfall plans. I mean, because they have to, because that is a constraint by the budgeting law.
Could you fund a 5-year vision and yearly?
See, I like the way you think. Exactly. Because there's nothing that says you can't write a contract for statements of objectives, not statements of work.
Ooh.
You can buy scope. You can buy an idea without getting into the gory details.
But wouldn't you have to require the people who are writing it to reimagine what a statement of objective looks like?
100%.
Vision?
Absolutely.
Because they will get trapped in their recency effect of,
yes.
know how to write. I know how to write a statement of work. So, but you're asking me to write a statement of objective. I don't know what that is, so I'll go back to what I know and I'll write it and say
And-
it's like this.
And lawyers and contracts people don't like wiggle room. They want to protect themselves at all costs.
Which is antithetical to the whole idea of innovation.
Of innovation. You nailed it. Absolutely.
Jesus.
Which is a great segue into innovation theater, right? Topic du jour.
Look at us. We are doing da-da-da, innovation.
I love it. It's
I
theater.
look all right. I
It's
look
good.
all right.
It's good.
Alas, poor York. Alas, poor York, when we doth know thee. Alas, poor innovation. I'm sorry. Yeah, grab the skull. He has the
Yes.
skull. I don't. There
Okay.
you
I
go.
got a whole plethora of skulls over here.
Alas, poor York, when we knew thee. When you were trying to do innovation
Yes.
and it killed you.
Yeah.
I'm
How about
sorry.
it?
I digress. I'm trying to be funny because I'm tired. I'm
Well,
sorry.
You're funny. I was trying to be funny by wearing a tuxedo to the theater. So you're funny.
Yeah.
Your funny's better than my funny. But
I was
Yeah,
asking about the jacket, man.
Yeah,
What's
I
up
was-
with that?
Looking good.
I was trying
Okay.
my best.
Let's get out of that.
We all came with a prop. All right, let's get into it. We got 39 minutes left.
But who's counting? My man.
Although we should actually do innovation theater as like an improv.
Oh, that would be fun.
I heard, and I'll give my friend Michael some props. I think there was an event in New York, I think during Tech Week, that maybe we were supposed to do this week, where instead of the pitch competition, there's like stand-up comedians or the judges.
Nice.
But I also think you could flip it around and have stand-up comedians or actors taking a script or a deck and just acting out. So I think you can go
Oh,
both. I think you can
that's
go
hilarious. No, I love that.
So he gets credit on the judge, but I've always
That's so
wanted to
funny.
see what would happen if the founders aren't paid, but comedians or actors get the deck. I think it would be pretty cool.
That's so funny because have you heard of PowerPoint karaoke?
No, but I guess it's kind of
Oh,
that.
so it's like the reverse of that. That's so funny. So you've got me on a tangent here. PowerPoint karaoke is where you present a topic, but someone else creates the slides for you, and you've never
Yeah,
seen the slides
yes.
before
Right.
until you actually brief it live.
Yeah.
That is
So-
funny.
Oh,
What
it's
you get?
hilarious because your friend can make your slide deck as wild or as crazy as decorum will allow, and there's some fun stuff. So if you know, and the funny part is the worst people for this are the Toastmasters, because they're so used to rehearsing their script that it will just instantly throw them for a loop. So definitely do that as an icebreaker sometime, PowerPoint karaoke. But I like the reverse spin as well that you have, where give some actual improv actors a startup slide deck. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's talk about innovation theater. So innovation, we have to define innovation first so we can tell if we are hitting the mark or not, to use an acting term.
And this
And-
should be easy, right?
Yeah, just cut and paste, right? Innovation. Let me get right to the point. My favorite on the spot definition of innovation is where you're introducing a new product or service that's bringing significant improvements or changes and gets adapted and actually gets used. Because without the and gets used or gets adapted, you've just got an invention. Right. So you
Right.
can create something. If nobody uses it, it's not an innovation. That's an invention.
I asked ChatGPT about that earlier, so that unfortunately Segway was
That's a
the
great example.
definition.
It's
Well,
a
you-
definition of what? It is an
Innovation.
invention.
Invention without innovation.
Yes, the Segway, the scooter, would be a great example of invention without innovation. Didn't really get adapted, wasn't the game changer, didn't change mobility as we know it.
And then
No, I appreciate anything with value.
Got the V word, yeah.
Right. I'm sorry, Adam.
Don't be.
Okay, I'm not. Then talk. Dadgummit, talk.
And then
So the goal. Take it away, Adam.
No, Jen Fry would be mad at us right now. We gotta get her back.
Oh, you got to get your semaphores up. All right. So if we're going to roll with that definition of innovation, then as organizations try to roll this out, they often find that they're going through the motions that they might have read in a book or followed through some coach, but you're not seeing the adaptation happen. You're not seeing the adoption happen into the organization. And so is it really innovation at that thing? And so I said a couple weeks ago, one of the problems I was solving was preventing an organization from creating innovation theater rather than actually creating innovation. Ty and I, when we worked together back in the day, we actually had a slide that I'm going to show here that we put right in the beginning of our slide deck to our senior executives, not necessarily to the general workforce. And we found that slightly adapted from, I believe, an HBR article, innovation thrives with 4 things, and then we added a 5th one as well. 4 plus 1. And so to get right to the point, we found that innovation thrives with space, a methodology, metrics, resources, and culture. So tonight we'll walk through some of those and where we've seen it work and where we haven't seen it work. Ty, let's talk about space. So unmute yourself and let's talk about space.
Sorry about that. I think this idea of space for innovation is. Could you go back to the slide again just one more time, please? Oh, he just muted himself out there. Jesus, man, what did you do?
No.
So I will. When we talk about space, welcome back, John.
I'm here.
When we talk about space, I think of not just a cognitive space, which gets to culture, but more importantly, where we do it. Are there ways in which we create a laboratory of sort?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a physical space, it's a permissioned space.
Right.
It's a permissioned space. I know Adam and John, the 3 of us, we get wary of innovation theater when it's like innovation happens over there. It's over there, and somebody does it out there.
Not here.
No,
it's them.
Not here. No, they
the
do
others.
It. And I'm always wary about when you get if only they would do it better, then we would be able to innovate, or if only they would stop doing this, then we would be able to do our thing.
Same team, man.
Yeah. But I do think that there is something to be said for permission space. What happened with Google X, right? Google X created a space for their folks who were doing this really wild and crazy harebrained idea in a wild and crazy harebrained environment that said, you will go over there and we are expecting you to go and like break some stuff. And we know it's going to happen. So Joshua is 19 now, or soon to be 19. That's my youngest kid. So he was playing soccer. And so I think he might have been 8 years old. So maybe it was 10 years ago. And I remember reading, it was a Wired magazine, and they were talking about Google X. And I really got interested in this article, and they were saying that the guy, and I think the guy who was running Google X at the time actually came and visited us, John, at NGA, Mike, I can't remember his last name, but apparently he went to Sergey Brin and said, hey, listen, yeah, you remember last year we went to the calculations, we lost about $600 million. Okay. Yeah. Did you guys learn anything? Oh, we learned a ton. Great. Let's go to lunch. And literally that was the essence of the idea, is that it was a permissioned space.
They didn't lose 600 million. They gained $600 million of learning. Right?
Exactly. But it was permission. It was authorized to go work in that space to do that job. Well, I think the counter to that is if you have those guys in that space, that's when it becomes innovation theater, right? That yes, those guys over there are doing our
Yeah,
innovation.
we've got this innovation lab over in the corner somewhere.
Yep.
Go over there.
Do you let them come out and play? Hell no.
No. Have fun storming the castle.
What's the quote where like innovation? One thing is turning money into learning, and innovation is turning learning into money. Something
I
like that.
I haven't heard that. That's a good one.
Yeah,
yeah, I love that.
So, I think it's still, and I have a whole track I want to go down on intent here, but I think it's still innovation theater if you're learning a lot and you know that those learnings are not being turned back into value.
So
Yes.
yeah, I always like to say they're lessons observed, not lessons learned.
Not lessons I still think, and it depends, and this is why it's interesting, because it's the relativity of, like, in the beginning, if you think you're learning, that's enough and that's okay, and it's not just the blatant innovation theater of ping pong tables or blah, but at some point, if you're it's just as bad if you're like, if you're justifying it as learning but you're not turning that back into value, or adoption, or some value. I'll stop there. But I think this, I love this when you sent this. We could pull back the curtain. We can tell everyone you sent this a couple hours ago. Like, well, I guess we can.
It's the secret sauce, man. Come on.
Well, I'll tell you, Adam,
All right.
you saw it a couple hours ago. We've seen this thing for like 8 years.
A decade almost, yeah.
So I think this is a lot, and it'll be hard for the three chuckleheads, as you say, to stay on track with this. So I'll defer to at least the two of you who are slightly better at this. But innovation thrives, but I don't think innovation theater is not the opposite of innovation thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Say more about that.
Well, so this is what I was kind of commenting on with our friend in the comments. Like, you could just have a bad, trying to tie it into a previous episode, bad strategy, right? Like, you could, if someone you could actually innovate on off strategy, and it could fill that definition of creating value. It might not be creating value for the customer and the company at the same time. It might not be the best use of resources, number 4 on this list, but I don't feel like you have innovation theater in the absence. You don't necessarily have innovation theater in the absence of perfect, thriving ecosystem and environment.
What did you say? Like, the absence of one does not imply the
yes.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I think you could just it could be the wrong space without being innovation theater. You could be the wrong methodology without being innovation theater.
Agreed.
You could have the wrong metric. Obviously the metrics piece. If you have a vanity metric that this is why, again, intent. If you're just counting shit or you're just counting learning, I think that's the easiest one to tie back to pure innovation theater.
Well, let's get to that then. Let's talk about the next one then. Methodology. So how are you going to do it, right? So it's not the spaghetti.
Well, let's close out space.
Okay.
Let's finish that because I think this is let's take it through this list.
I think you're hitting all the right things here. Like for space, yes, you should have some dedicated space both in time and in mental capacity.
I think the mental capacity. I'm like a bull in a china shop right now.
I like it.
You always tell me to do it, so I'm doing it.
Jump in.
I think it's semantics, but I think the mental space there falls under culture. So I do think, where are we innovating? Let's not be cute. Let's not succumb to our own innovation theater. I think there's enough to talk about there with Skunkworks and physically in the lab or in the building or oversee, like, where physically are we innovating with startups? I have now a little bit of a background. Like, you just totally go not just off campus, but literally You know, do you just work with startups, or you go totally externally and open innovation? So I think that category in and of itself, but again, even separating that from culture and like the headspace, Ty, I still remember when we were at the Lean Startup Conference and the theme that year was psychological safety, which I believe in at its you know, with its intent, but I think that became another form of innovation theater. Just calling,
Yes.
you know, just telling people they had permit, you know, like I don't think that that ever manifested in the way it could have. But again, without being cute, I think we can. I'm actually glad it's last on the list, because otherwise we'd spend the next hour just on there. But I think physically, there's enough there to talk about where physically it belongs. And I also think we're going to have a hard time talking about innovation through these, but then innovation, bad strategy, and innovation theater. I think those are probably three lenses. I think those are the only three, or maybe it's just good and bad, and innovation theater falls under bad.
So I would suggest that we actually have one of those funny cartoons. The guy who writes the business cartoons, and one says, "Hey, let's go. Isn't our thing really good? And we're doing this thing for teenage girls, and like, should we go talk to them?" They're all sitting in a conference room, and they're like, "What?" And leave this room. And so, to your point, Adam, just because you have it doesn't mean that you're not doing it. It's because in this cartoon, the extension of the cartoon is they're supposedly developing this really innovative thing for a group that they've never talked to, but they have a space. And to your point, the space and the culture aren't necessarily disconnected. As a matter of fact, I think, John, what you were suggesting is, as Adam was going through it, he was hitting all five, because they are all connected to making sure that you're doing innovation.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, they
I mean,
are.
I said something that made sense.
They're definitely
Holy
connected.
crap.
I know. It sounded good.
The clock is twice every day.
Let's talk methodology, because I'm going to move you guys through methodology. How are we doing innovation? So one thing that's important is to actually pick a methodology so that you can actually track progress, which is kind of the next bullet. But if one group over here is doing your traditional planning and your other group's doing agile and your other group's doing lean startup, like, how can you compare progress? How can you see results in a way that's consistent with the expectations laid out there by your sponsors? Right. So that becomes important. That pick one. Like I think, the three of us are pretty agnostic when we have our flavors that we like of lean startup, agile methodologies. But again, doesn't matter as long as you pick one, and that's the way that you're going to encourage teams to work within that space. Then I think that's moving right on from space into methodology. Any other thoughts on methodology?
Yeah, I think the methodology, it's more, you said the expectation, so like I think we've been doing a lot. I think we've started to dive into, what is the expectation? How long is it going to take? And then, adding strategy and cadence and timelines on top of that. But here you have a built-in, you can't just say learning is the expectation. You can't, you have this built-in expectation in this one. Like, I think all three of us are advocates. Like, no, like, you can't just guarantee value. Like, we're running experiments. Some of this stuff is going to fail. Learnings are valuable. Like, we spent a lot of time talking about that, but in here, to me, it's less. And maybe this gets into the metrics and the timing. But if you're already saying that it has to have, I mean, this is like, we're the lawyers now. We're like the.
I like that, because one thing that's important, where I've seen it work well, is the senior executives or the people with the money or the sponsors actually understand the methodology at a high level. Because when you don't have that, you have people that are sponsoring, let's just say, agile projects and saying, what's my critical path and what are you going to deliver in 6 years, right? You're like, no. That's not innovation. Like, we're trying to do something different. We're doing it through a different methodology. And so understanding the methodology is critical for getting the right outcomes and expectations met.
So is that now also like, because now I'm thinking it's not even a methodology. Like the methodology shouldn't matter.
So,
it's
okay.
sort of a mindset that ahead of time, okay, fine. Our organization is good at turning learnings into, or that the first year of any project, if we believe that value exists in 6 years and funding is incremental, and learnings come first, and then prototyping, and 50% of things fail. Like you're looking at things from a portfolio point of view, but in the long run, you still there's expectation is that something is going to be commercially viable and valuable in 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
And it's not so much the method, and then I'm done. Then it's not so much the methodology; it's more the mindset. I think our friend Ash would jump in here. I don't know.
Think process. This is the process part over principles, right? So this is, you got to have both, right? You got to, have a healthy mindset, and you have to do the exercise in a certain way so you don't hurt yourself, right? So I think that's the balance there, is to pick a methodology.
If you could throw one of these 5 out, what would it be? To avoid
None of them. Well, I will say metrics does feed off of whichever methodology you're using, right? So those two are definitely tightly correlated, because once you pick your methodology, then you will measure them differently depending on the process you're going to use.
Not to go back too far back, but with space, I think that one of the things we had talked about was an accelerator versus
a makerspace
or anything like exactly. And so if I had to throw one out, it would be space, because the space doesn't necessarily determine whether or not I am doing some kind of innovation, right? Because I could sit in my garage that I had, that is just me by myself, and I'm tinkering, trying to figure something out. And I go out and I talk to people and they go, "Holy crap, this is just amazing." And it gets to the definition early on, and like you create something that's creating value. And so just answering your question, but I think method is also important part of that.
I agree with you. I think you both thought, and I think I thought that I was going to throw out methodology, but I agree. I think space was created. Well, I thought it when I said it, but I think space was created to sort of react to the fact that the other 4 are not being met. So it's like, we need this separate space. But I think if you have metrics, culture, resources, and a methodology, and it's actually being followed, you don't necessarily need its own. I think the space almost became.
You need mental space, and don't call it culture.
All right, fine. I still have until we get there, but
I love it.
So I really wanted. I know we have to go. I have to get to the next one, but with methodology, can I share real quick?
Please.
Is that possible?
Sure can.
Because what I'd like to share is share screen. And it's this one. Have you all ever heard of the Hallmeyer Catechism?
I have.
And so can you see it on the screen? There you go. The Hallmeyer Catechism is really interesting, because this is the guy who was the founder of DARPA. Well, he was one of the original directors of DARPA. And what do we know about DARPA? Internet, GPS, some other really things that we look at today and we go, "Oh my God, we can't live without them." But if you look at what he's offering up, he said, here's his methodology to generate big rewards requiring big risks. What are you trying to do? How's it done today? What's new in your approach? Who cares? What are the risks? How much? How long will it take? And what are the midterm and final exam checks? And so when I look at that, how I stop sharing. When I look at the Hallmeyer, that's a methodology. And for us, that looks like lean startup. So there is a person where John and I used to work. who was the director of the research program that now has moved on to bigger and better things in the side of DoD research. When I was like, yeah, we got this lean startup thing, he was like, sounds like Halmeyer to me. Okay.
Sure.
Hey, I had nothing I can come back with. I'm like,
Exactly.
sure. Only we're looking at it and trying to find this cost per unit value. And he was like, you know, there ain't enough meat on the bones for me to care. So it was just interesting, just
Yeah,
as a methodology.
I love it. Makes sense. Next step, let's see. So again, the metrics, how are we going to measure that methodology? Because again, I think I'm a firm believer that you can measure the wrong thing very accurately. Right?
Yes, sir.
Because it doesn't matter. Like you said, Adam, it doesn't matter if you run 10 experiments or 1,000 experiments. Like, unless you are saying what success looks like, right? And to what is your measure of value? What's your measure of, of time and money and resources well spent? Then there's lots of ways you can do that, but you have to agree on how are we going to measure. Basically, to answer the question, when do we know when we can stop?
I think metrics are the kind of doing this in real time. I think metrics are the most susceptible to innovation theater, hence vanity metrics.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
I
but then I was thinking,
will totally agree with you there.
Space is also, like if it's more binary, like the quintessential space of the ping pong table where we think, so I think that's vanity. So vanity space is a ping pong
Ooh,
table.
nice.
Vanity methodology.
We're agile. We're doing
right
stand-ups. Yeah.
Right. That's
vanity metrics.
Theater. That's literally theater. Like
yeah.
stand-ups for the sake of stand-ups.
Yeah, I like it.
Literally.
This is good.
Vanity metrics are intentionally measuring the wrong, things that only go up and to the right. So I'll give, I think Eric Ries gets credit for that. If they can only increase, I do think that's a great definition of a vanity. It's both. It gets the concept across, but it's also something that and again, this is intent. If it's bullshit, can we say that? I know we can't.
You've
say
already
this.
broken that rule like 5 times already. So. It's
not
too late
tonight.
now.
Not tonight. All right.
Go check the tape.
All right. Vanity culture is psychological safety without really and so.
We need the anti-innovation canvas here.
What's the vanity? Yeah. What are vanity resources?
Yeah.
Money. No.
Yeah, we're just throwing people and money at it and saying, we're innovating.
Or I guess 20% time is a vanity resource. At Google to
if you're not measuring it exactly,
or if you're not enforcing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people's time. Yeah. Okay. All right. I got through that. Go ahead.
I like it.
Go and take a break.
So we have there included in the metrics like TRLs, the technical readiness levels, innovation readiness levels. There's lots of different ways that you can measure. There's not any right or wrong ones, but certainly there are ones that are better depending on the scenario of your organization.
And back in the day, remember, John, you and I were doing car innovation, our podcast In Your Car. And because it was at lunchtime, we needed to get out, and it's the only time we could figure it out. It was really cool. If anybody wants to go and check it out, just go to @what pays, and you'll see them. But we talked about organizational readiness, right? And ORL, whether or not the organization, not as a technical or there's innovation, but is the organization ready to take on the innovation? Because if they're not, because it's feasible, viable, desirable, each one of those has a readiness level. And I think that we could make a case for. I think we could make a case for each one of the feasible, viable, desirable in terms of readiness for your entire business model, your innovation. You could start to begin to create some kind of sensibilities about we have a customer and they are at levels 5, 7, but our feasibility level, our technical readiness is at a level 3. Right? We might be getting ourselves involved in some innovation theater.
Also known in many organizations as the chasm of death, where you've got a great idea from a small group and you try to institutionalize it and it just falls off the cliff in like there's no way to easily integrate it with legacy platforms or, legacy processes, etc.
So that goes back to my earlier point. Like that to me is not innovation theater. That's just a structural problem.
But if adaptation and adoption is the definition of innovation, you've done invention, but you have not adopted it yet into
Right,
the organization.
So I agree that it's bad and
Mhm.
it's bad strategy. But if you knowingly, this again, intent, and this is where if you knowingly are just generating learnings, or if you knowingly just generating data, or you knowingly that's innovation.
Sure.
For me. I feel like if you
Right.
have, if in good faith you have the right tech readiness level, you're measuring the right things, and you have the right culture.
Yeah, let's assume noble intent for all of these.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's innovation theater if then
Mhm.
the first 2 times, at least 10 times max, maybe. So that's why I was kind of having some fun with, is it necessarily innovation? In that case, I don't think it is, unless that we never get one over this. So this is all just, we've never once gotten one through but then what do how do you solve that? And who are the theater goers and who are the actors?
So Adam, when you say knowingly doing this or knowingly doing that, what do you mean by that? I'm curious.
If I am engaging, if I know here's a bunch of money, go do this small project, and I'm funding it the right way with the right methodology, and the right resources, and I'm theoretically giving people psychological safety and space to, but I know that thing is never going to be adopted as this sponsor to keep this consistent. That to me is innovation theater perpetrated by that.
Because you've violated the culture that we haven't got to yet.
Now, if I'm in that same exact innovation program, and I'm in the right space, I'm using let's say lean startup methodology, and I'm really doing it, I'm building and measuring learning, using the right metrics. We'll talk about resource in a second, and the culture. Like, to me, that's not necessarily innovative. If I'm going through that with a genuine intent, it's Schrodinger's cat. Like, it's both innovation theater and not innovation theater simultaneously. So Schrodinger's innovation theater. Yeah. So I think that to me, that's been my point this whole time. Is that, like, you could, if you believe. It's like a Seinfeld reference. If you believe in the lie, it is no lie. Is that copyright, John, or under 10 seconds? We're allowed to do it. Yeah, I think if your intent is there, I think it actually does eliminate most of the theater part. It doesn't necessarily make it a good idea, or it certainly doesn't mean that innovation is thriving, actual innovation where there's value at the end of the spectrum, but to me, it gets you out of the theater, which to me is like either malicious or like comes with the fact that that you're putting on a show, that you're just BSing your way through something.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting the head on kind of the culture piece. 90% of what you said is really, are you purposefully supporting the culture? But let's go to resources, and then we'll get to culture. Resources. How are we resourcing?
Before we finish metrics, did you use how instead of what on purpose? I'm assuming with the size of the two of your brains, I'm assuming you did. So
yes. So it's not specifically what you measure, but it's the how you measure it, right? So whether you choose to use innovation accounting or readiness levels or critical schedule or budget runoff, right? Doesn't matter. You just make it a choice, whatever value is to your organization, and measure it. Make sure you choose the right metric for the outcome you're trying to get to, because that is one of my pet peeves. Again, I'll say it again. You can measure the wrong thing very accurately. So let's make sure that we measure the right thing very accurately.
Where are you putting, and then I promise we'll move on. Where are you putting the cadence?
Methodology.
Yeah, I thought that might be your answer. Okay.
Yep. I love it.
I accept. Move on.
Which your cadence can go into your resources as well. How are we resourcing your innovation? The worst case, Ty alluded to it a couple episodes back. I saw someone come up to me and say, John, we have to find work for 77 new engineers, and we have to get this contract ready by the end of the month. I said, to do what? Well, we got 77 engineers coming in. I said, what can you do with 7? Right? Can you just find something for 7 people to do? How about 1 person? Right? And so, no, we just have to throw money and throw resources and throw people at this problem that'll go away. You're like, whoa. That is not the way to approach something from a try and fail, from a being a good steward of sponsor dollars. We are definitely are in the camp of we want small, cheap, and failable experiments. And so when you fail, because you're going to, you're not putting all of it, putting everything on, one number on the roulette table and spinning the wheel. You're actually hedging your bets, and you're actually doing it in a more purposeful way.
What I like about that in terms of methodology and metrics, in terms of incrementality, that's a big word. I just made that word up.
I like it.
Is that if you are using a method and you're getting metrics and you're incrementally funding them, the accuracy of your metrics goes up, conversely goes up, if I have a smaller set of things that I'm measuring versus I'm going to fund everything and then just run some metrics on it and go, I now have 40,000 lines of data that I can't even think about what I'm supposed to do. I know, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because heretofore, you couldn't, the amount of time that you would have spent doing a SPSS run on 40,000 lines of data to find correlations, to figure out what I spent money on in some method with some set of metrics to find out where there was, whether or not I got the bang for my buck, the value on the ROI was, you would have spent more money trying to figure that out than probably you spend on the other thing.
Exactly.
So reduce the error, because I think about this. I sucked at calculus. I absolutely horrible high school teacher. God rest her soul, but she sucked as a math teacher. I didn't understand what the lady was doing. But what I did get to know about calculus, it's the area under the curve. And if you didn't want to have all of the area to try to figure out, what do? You slice it up into meaningful pieces that look like squares. And then whatever lies outside the curve, that's error, right? It's a wiggle room. But if I get those small enough, now I can figure out how am I getting closer and closer to some, not truth, but reality. Mm-hmm. That's science. Because when I think of innovation, methodology, metrics, and research, particularly methodologies and metric, I think science. Mm-hmm. I think some, and you said it, John, some small scale experiments, because the thing that we did not say in methodology is that it's driven by hypotheses and experiments.
Yes.
We didn't say that. Mm-hmm. We alluded to it, but we didn't say that. And so what's the best way to manage your resources? By managing smaller and smaller bets. A whole bunch of them, area under the curve, but they're smaller in size.
Mm-hmm. Both with people, time, and resources.
A resource, and I think it's critically, I don't know who's going to listen to this.
Like money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's critically important that we get people off of the resources of dollar and cents. It's a Benjamin. It just ain't. Time and effort are resources.
Correct. Thank you. Yes. Absolutely. 100%.
Over.
Adam approves.
Bing.
Yeah. So metered funding. There's a really good book. The Corporate Startup is a good one that actually can talk through that. They even have some great resources on their blogs that are probably worth talking about in another episode too.
Who does that? Who is that?
The Corporate Startup, Dan Toma, and
we need to get. Do you know Dan?
10-Day.
Adam, I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know Dan?
I I was gonna say we'll get him on, but then John. No,
Nope, I don't believe it.
Since you said it, we'll have
You
him
need.
on. I'll even commit to a date. I think it's going to be
We
the
need to
third,
we need to
the third
resource
Monday,
this
the
podcast incrementally.
I believe it's going to be the third Monday in August when Dan will be live with us from the studio. Dan,
Put your bets down now.
Good dude.
Can't
Good
wait.
dude.
I can't wait. I hope you're
All
right.
right.
Moving on. Last one, culture, which is, I think, is woven through everything that Adam has said all night. How are we supporting it? And this was one that when we extracted this from this article we read, it only had those first four. And Ty and I said, that's all good, but we started seeing the errors and the ways exactly like you did, Adam. They said, you can still go through the motions and not get the outcomes that you want for a variety of reasons, the least of which, it's not being supported, right? It's just over there. We don't have top cover. There's no plan to integrate with the organization there's no plan to be profitable, right? That is a killer. And so we said, if culture is the set of repeated behaviors of an organization, then we need to make sure that the organization grows, that is going to repeat good behaviors and stop doing bad behaviors. And so it has to be supported with intent, with purpose, and not just, yay, we're innovative, over there in that corner, but we still got our other day job we got to do. Like we're an H1 organization and H3 is, Bob's closet over there that's next to the janitor's closet.
So is this where you would file our friend? We can talk because it's in the comments, and I said if it was in the comments, we'd talk about it live. So
Yeah.
is this where you would file not being on strategy as not, because again, I don't know. All right, same point. How would you categorize?
Like it.
How would you categorize something that is truly innovative or could be innovative, or at least is a condition in which innovation might thrive and checks all the boxes, but is not on strategy? Whose fault is that? And is it innovation theater, bad strategy, or other? And where in this box does it fail?
So I'm glad you came back to that, because you had me thinking about it. I'll throw out my idea and then I'll see what Ty bites at, because Ty's my strategy guy. If you are using a strategy framework, not unlike play to win strategy, you're going to hit some of these if you are actually making a choice and doing it right. So what I mean by that, your management systems is where you do your methodology and your metrics, right? Where you play and how you win are your resources and your space. And culture may or may not be related in there. I haven't thought that far ahead. We'll call it winning aspiration plus some of the other boxes as well. So if you're deliberate with your strategy, then it can manifest in some of these. Ty?
So this is where I'll try. I don't know if I'm going to answer your question directly. I think that you laid out the correlations to the play to win strategy fairly decently. I mean,
sure.
You will get an argument from me. But I had a conversation earlier on with a gentleman that I belong to this organization called the Catalyst Leadership, CLT, Catalyst Leadership Team. But it's a group of people who are like C-suite folks who are looking at what they call catalysts. And so if you think of a catalyst in chemistry engages a reaction, but doesn't continue on. It's the one that starts it. So sunlight catalyzes hydrogen peroxide. It breaks it up, right? It breaks the bonds. It doesn't do anything other than make something happen. Well, leaders do that too. They catalyze action in people. Good leaders, others just manage what people are supposed to do. But good leaders catalyze behaviors in folks that get them to move beyond what they can normally do themselves, because they're trapped. I mean, they're like 9 to 5 in it, 40 hours a week, just making sure they check the box. Good leaders say there's something obviously that we can do better than that. In innovation, it's even more important, I believe, that you catalyze, that you have a catalytic opportunity inside of innovation where you engage communities, you engage cultures to think beyond what we've been talking about tonight, innovation theater. Catalytic behavior inside of innovation theater is completely different. Here's where it gets tricky in this conversation. We talked about liminality. Liminal spaces is like the space between. There's a great song by Dave Matthews. I'm a Dave Matthews Band fan. And the name of the song is A Space Between. And in that, part of the lyrics is, he says, in the space between is where the wicked lies, where you'll find me hiding safe from the pain. The space between is where you fickle, funny words confuse me, and opportunities that are that push us to do something creative and something different. And so we talked about that even when you think about the idea that I have the right thing to do, liminal space creates an opportunity to do something that you couldn't have otherwise done or wouldn't have thought about. I think innovation theater is close to some other organization guys I'm working with. I put this piece out playing on Ash Muir's thing. Love the problem, find the solution. Love the problem, find the solution. Innovation theater is, I have a solution that I'm going to back into an innovation. I'm going to back into a problem. I think that what we're talking about when you don't have it is where you have a bunch of people going, oh my God, I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to keep at this.
Right.
We're going to keep in this liminal space between absolutely known and completely unknown and uncertain. And we're going to stay in that troubled space. We're going to trouble ourselves and really get at it. But we're going to do it in a way like these 5 pieces that we laid out. We have a space, we have a methodology, we have resources, we have metrics, but the culture is catalytic. We're actually pushing people beyond what they could normally do by themselves. They're all of a sudden saying, you know what? I have no idea. We had talked about, this guy and I, we had talked about human beings think in abstraction. All right, so what do we do every day, guys? We work with people in design thinking. What if? How might we? What would it look like? That's abstractive thinking.
Right.
That's catalytic thinking. When we do this right in innovation, you don't get innovation theater. You get people going, let me write this and put this up on the wall, and let me figure that, and then find the patterns, and where does all this, I need to go talk to somebody about this because I think I'm onto something. I need to follow Adam's request that we go talk to the next 25 people to see whether or not we're onto something, right? Because we're asking people to fit inside this gap of abstraction and not go be seduced by what we think is right. That's where there's an inverse relationship between the expansiveness of the unknown and the certainty of a technology. If we have a lot of technology, what we have done, we've reduced our uncertainty. Innovation is all
you can put AI
that.
on everything, right?
Oh my God.
It's ubiquitous now, so every product has AI now.
And this is where we got, this guy and I, we were talking, this is where we got to. I think I was listening to Winston Chang, not Winston Chang, the guy who, the CEO of NVIDIA, what's his name? You know, I'm talking, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
He said, I saw this thing, their NVIDIA conference was about 2.5 months ago. He said, in 2008, it was reading, writing, arithmetic, and coding. And he was like, why would you want to do that now? You have AI.
Right.
It's reading, writing, arithmetic, and critical thinking.
And coding.
Right. You don't even need to code anymore.
Right.
Right. But I do need to know how to think about a problem to give the AI a mathematical sets of words to kind of build this thing. This guy, he and I were talking, I read a lot, but I don't read like I used to. I used to read a lot. I didn't read a lot, but I used to read a lot. He's convinced me tonight that I need to read more, because now what do I have to treat AI? I now have creative inputs that allow me to kind of create all kinds of stuff. It's not innovation anymore. I mean, it's not theater anymore. It's real innovation that I can find a tool. Heretofore, I would do with paper and pencil, and the 3 of us would sit around and we beat ourselves in the face. But now we can have this space where we can say, holy crap, what do we got? This is real. There's something here, but we haven't really thought about what we could build with this thing. And the creativity, the culture, this is so, I think this, and Adam, this is why we added this of those four. And John was looking for it. It's the reason why we added culture, because it has to be supported. It has to be purposeful. You have to think in this kind of this gap between certainty and uncertainty, that liminal space where you go, what are we really trying to do? Are we really trying to solve something that's important, that's meaningful, that'll change people's lives? Okay, I'm done. I ain't got nothing left.
Do you need a cigarette, Ty?
Yeah, I do.
That was good. Worked up a sweat there.
But I really do. I mean, I mean, all jokes aside, it was that, how do we, in innovation, you have to live in abstractive. You have to live in the abstractive. All those other four pieces are real.
Live in the
culture,
squiggle.
Yes. That culture thing is that is abstractive thinking. And if you can't have that living in the squiggle, none of those other four mean a damn thing. They really don't. They mean nothing. It is theater. Build all the right things for all the wrong reasons.
Boom. I think that's a great way to wrap things up. These 5 things.
Holy smokes. We've been here for 56 minutes already?
Time flies when you're having fun, baby.
Oh my God.
I was waiting for you to notice that.
All right. Let's do a quick summary and then go for final thoughts.
Wait, just because I don't want to use this as my final thought, because I got another final thought. So
Just got 2 final thoughts.
If metrics are the most susceptible to innovation theater, are you saying that culture is the antidote to innovation theater? Like, even if you have strong cultures that beat vanity metrics, vanity methodology, or
culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, it was kind of.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah, but is culture?
Well, so I think these are, although they're connected, they can be treated as independent variables, right?
Course,
because you can have a great culture and a great innovation culture, but if you don't have the other 4 things, then it's just theater. It's just a paper tiger. I don't know.
I would say this, that if you have the right culture, it will inform you whether or not the other 4 are in the right place.
Culture as a foundational piece. I like that. That's a great way to.
It becomes a check on your behavior. It becomes a check on what you're trying to build.
Yeah, which are behaviors are the repeated behaviors of an organization are your culture. And so if you're not seeing the same metrics being captured the same way, if you're seeing some people getting better space than others, right, you're going to see inconsistencies, then your culture is going to fall apart.
Yeah, not to have the last word. The reason, if you stress test it, if you just have the right space, it's not going to do anything. If you just have the right methodology, it's not going to do anything.
Correct.
With metrics and culture, if you just have the right resources, it's not going to do anything. If you're measuring, I feel like how you're measuring, if that's really done right, along with culture, I do think that was like my original injection. That's why I was calling it the antidote, or the anti. Anti.
Trying to find a way to throw one of these away. I see.
Yeah. No, I'm just all right.
No, but I love it, because you're really massaging the framework here that we've laid out, and you're challenging it, and I appreciate that, because that's how this gets better. But I think this is a great walkthrough of things, again, that we've seen anti-patterns as well as where we've seen it work well. So in summary, space, methodology, metrics, resources, and culture will, if done with intent and done for all the right reasons, can get you out of innovation theater and creating value. Adam, your second final thought. Take it away.
All right. My other comment was on the original comment in the chat about strategy. I think just like psychological safety was a thing, systems thinking, which I believe in and I think is real and I think is powerful. There are a lot of times when it's sort of off strategy, but you're justifying systems thinking as a way to include it. Like, and again, this goes back to my intent thread. It's like, we genuinely believe that this somewhat off strategy thing will result in the objective being met. because of how the system reacts with each other, versus, again, just knowingly, this is totally off strategy, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think that that's something maybe to revisit in a future episode, because I think they're two different things, and there is a justification for somewhat off strategy, but with a systems framework, versus off strategy versus like, I know it's off strategy and I don't care. I have a pet project. So I think those are two different things.
That's fair.
One of which is innovation theater, one of which is not.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Ty, final thoughts.
I want to thank you for revisiting these 5 things of the 4+1 that we had talked about. We'd come up with so long ago. I think that what innovation needs, the remedy are those 5 things are the remedy to innovation theater. I would be careful if we think that we satisfy one and all the other 4 will stay in place. The human condition is all about being without pain, and not suggesting that we suffer, but we have to remain vigilant. And so each one of those 5 is a quote unquote painful process. But if there is vigilance around all 5 of those, we can keep out of the trap of, that didn't work. So that's my final thought. Stay vigilant.
I like it. That's very, very zen. I appreciate that. Awesome. Let's go over
And
to me.
about
Yeah.
you, buddy? What about you?
me? Yeah, I enjoy this because I'm the older I get, the more I like to latch onto frameworks, because they're mental models that make my lazy brain go back to something. And if I can hang on to that and not just accept it as true, but like as Adam did, challenge it and say, what if I don't do this, or what if I do this a different way? Does it break the framework, or do I need to adapt it? And there's been a lot of discussions about how do we ensure that when we do innovations in large organizations, of which I'm familiar, how do we make sure we're actually doing it for the right reasons, we're doing it the right way, and we're actually creating value? The V word comes in every time. Are we creating value? You have to determine who's your customer and what value means to them. But then after that, once you know that, boom, it makes all those other choices about space, methodology, metrics, resources, and culture that much easier. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. See if you can follow that checklist along in your innovation and try to improve. So with that, I think that is enough for all of us. See you next week, guys. See you then.